Hello everybody, Merry Christmas and welcome to my end of the year vlog for 2023. We're going to talk about my game of the year, we're going to talk about this year and the content that I've put up. We're also going to talk about next year and kind of what I hope to achieve, and we're going to talk about my failures this year because it's always good to look back and be like, well, how can I improve on what I did so that the next year is better? But before we dive into any of that, I want to talk about how I'm really happy with how this year went for the channel. It went really, really well. And I think all of the content that I made and put out there was of excellent quality. Super happy with all of the series that we got through and the rate at which we got through them. I think that's an important thing too. And I think that the next year, so for 2024, now that I've had a pretty consistent year this year of like just putting out good stuff constantly, next year is all about managing my time better, and which is always going to be the case, but like improving upon the time management that I've learned this year, and then trying a few different new things and hoping to see what those new things end up turning into, because it'll be a test here and there. We'll talk about some of the tests that I've done this year and what's going on with that, but yeah, we're going to test some things out next year and kind of see how that goes. But let's start out by talking about my game of the year, because it's a quick conversation. There really was no debate in my head about this one. My game of the year is 100% Baldur's Gate 3. It is such a fantastic game. For various reasons. One, it's doing the impossible. It is giving players the ultimate amount of freedom while still remaining on a narrative path that doesn't let you go off and kind of like I don't know, like in Skyrim. This is a great way to do it. So in Skyrim, you have your intro. You get out of the intro and you can like go down to Riverton or whatever the town is if you really want to, or you could just go anywhere, and you could not see the main story for that game for hundreds of hours before you finally loop back around to do that, if you so choose, or you could just never see the main story of the game at all. Baldur's Gate 3 does not do that. It has a narrative thread that it wants you to get on, and you're going to do that. It doesn't let you just like wander off and completely forget the fact that you're on a timetable with the story that's going on. But it still gives you absolute freedom in everything, and that is a weird balancing act to be able to do. People who've never worked in game design or have no idea of anything about game design this will go right over your heads. Like these weird little things about Baldur's Gate 3 will go right over your heads. But the thing to keep in mind is that they're doing something that the rest of the gaming industry wished that they could do, but based on various constraints on their own games that they're making, or the constraints of investors and stuff like that, they just don't have the freedom to do that. Now, Larian has been able to get away with this because they made several previous games that are very similar to Baldur's Gate 3 with Divinity and Divinity Original Sin 2. I think Divinity Original Sin was like their first pass at this, and it was really pretty solid. And then Original Sin 2 was really good, but it didn't have the touchstones that a Baldur's Gate would. It doesn't have the Dungeons and Dragons property behind it, which we'll talk about in just a moment. But the vast majority of their testing for this game came from two previous games that they completed and got out the door. You can't say that about many other companies, that they've already made this game. Essentially, they've already tested this stuff out. Now they just needed it to be ported to the Dungeons and Dragons property, and take the rule set of 5th edition and essentially port it into a video game. And they did that flawlessly in a way that that encompasses narrative, gameplay, game design, and just system design, presentation, like all of it. It is a 10 out of 10 game for sure. Even if you are not a person who typically likes turn-based games, CRPGs, or deep RPGs. If you gave yourself an hour or two into this game, you would see why it is so good. And yeah, they're just doing things that nobody else is doing at the moment. And they totally deserve winning Game of the Year at the Game Awards. And in my book, they're also the Game of the Year. That's not to say that there weren't great games that came out this year. There were absolutely fantastic gems. But that one in particular hit a completely different level that the other ones didn't quite reach. And honestly, the runner-up for me was Jedi Survivor. I really, really enjoyed that game. The performance issues at launch on PC were definitely a problem, but that was kind of to be expected given the fact that Fallen Order had kind of similar issues. But Jedi Survivor had taken the Fallen Order formula that they came up with, this like Uncharted, Dark Souls-y type game that they've put together, and amplified it and made it a lot better. And now we know they're doing a trilogy, so I'm really looking forward to what they do with the next game, because hopefully they're able to take everything they've learned so far and put it into an experience that is tight and also a great story. The problem with Jedi Survivor for me is with Fallen Order, without spoiling anything, so don't worry about that. With Fallen Order, there's a beat at the end of the game that I was not spoiled on, and you could see it in my playthrough if you go watch my Fallen Order playthrough. It absolutely blew me away, and it was one of the coolest things to ever happen to me in a video game, let alone a Star Wars video game. And when that moment hits and the terror sets in, it is freaking fantastic. Fantastic. Jedi Survivor didn't really have that. They had really good moments. In fact, they have one incredibly memorable moment on Jeddah that, if you know, you know, and it is the standout moment in the game. It's so freaking cool, and it's that moment that you just kind of fall in love with this game and what they've been able to do with these characters, and it makes you really, really want to see these characters in live action, which is something that could be done. And that's why it comes to runner up for me, but it doesn't hit the same levels that Baldur's Gate 3 does. Granted, I didn't play a huge amount of games this year. If I were to go based on narrative, I really, really wish that Diablo 4 narratively hit better. But what Diablo 4 did that the other games didn't do is it created a world in which I was absolutely immersed by. I love what they've done with Sanctuary and with the Cathedral of Light and Imperius and Lilith and all that in Diablo 4. And I'm really chomping at the bit to get a bit more of that, especially when the expansion comes out sometime next year, towards the end of the year. But I think I wanted more from that game, and that game is willing to give more to me. I just don't have the time to extract that at the moment. And we'll talk a little bit about that along with my failures this year. But let's talk about the content that I put out this year. So obviously I put out Terraria content, lots of Terraria content. We did The Stars Above, we did Mod of Redemption, we did the Spirit mod, and now we're doing, we also actually finished the Calamity Summoner mod towards the beginning of the year, but now we're doing the Calamity melee mod, and I really enjoyed that. I'm having a lot of fun with it. But outside of that, the other great series we did Baldur's Gate 3, obviously. We're in the middle of that. We're actually flying through that game. I'm doing very long episodes for it, so it's kind of hard for people to keep up. But you know what? If you're into it, and that's great. And if you're like, I just need to catch up on this later, that's also totally fine. I'm having a bunch of fun with it, especially like the most recent handful of episodes where big revelations happen in the story, and I'm losing my mind because this is another game that I've just not been spoiled on, and I'm really happy for that. But then I also did Jedi Survivor, obviously, talked about that, had a bunch of fun with it. If you're going to watch that, definitely watch my Fallen Order playthrough first, and you'll kind of see the double whammy there. I did The Last of Us, which I haven't finished. I do plan on going back to it when I have an open moment. The reason that series got paused was because we hit a point in the game where the performance issues it made the game literally unplayable. Like it was crashing like after about a minute of playing the game in a specific area that I was at. That has since been fixed, so I will return to that and I will finish The Last of Us probably early this next year. I also tried a new series. I tried and succeeded with the new series, but I am having time struggles to get back to it. Although I have worked on it and it will come back in a big way, which is the Star Wars Ranked and Reviewed, where I rank and review the entirety of the Star Wars cinematic stuff. So the movies, and then later the TV shows, and having a giant list where I rank all of that and talk through each of the movies and whatnot. We got all the way through Solo. I'm on the original trilogy now, and that will be going up in January. So keep an eye out for that. And then that also just like leads into the rest of the year, where who knows what we're going to have, because we had that weird like writer strike and a bunch of other issues that happened. But the next shows that are coming out after we had just gotten Ahsoka, which Ahsoka was amazing. We have the Skeleton Crew, which I think has like Jude Law in it. We have the Acolyte, and then there's something else coming out next year. So there's quite a lot going on in the Star Wars universe, and I'm excited to continue talking about that because it is a huge passion of mine. And then of course, yeah, I did Terraria, and I shouldn't not mention this. We also hit up a lot of first impressions videos. You would be surprised to hear this, but that is one of my greatest sources of new viewers to the channel. A lot of new viewers. Like right now it's Terraria is #1 for bringing in new viewers, and then my first impression series, which is actually significant. Like there are several episodes of that just have thousands of views that have racked up this year. And I really enjoy doing that, so that is going to continue in 2024, hopefully on a more regular basis, but that, again, is time permitted. But before we move past the moment, I do want to quickly discuss Baldur's Gate 3, because there is a flip side to that game that I haven't discussed on the channel yet, which is that I am officially, there we go, boycotting Wizards of the Coast. I'm no longer buying any 5th edition product or any Dungeons and Dragons product, period. This comes from a handful of different directions, but #1 is their decision earlier this year to have tried to monetize the open rule system that they had, which was causing other creators such as Critical Role, which it was primarily targeted at Critical Role, but other people like Matt Colville and a couple of other smaller creators that made content for that game, whether it be adventures or like full-on supplements, or in the case of Critical Role, like their whole campaigns that they're doing. That stuff would then be monetizable for Wizards of the Coast, which on the surface is like, yeah, it is your property. You want to be making money off of that. But the way that they wanted to do that hurt not just those people who are creating content for the game and bringing people into the game, by the way, for free. It's a free advertising for Wizards of the Coast. And specifically Hasbro, I guess, is the parent company there. But at the same time, it hurt the little persons, the people who, you know, were just making content as like a hobby and posting it on like the DM's Guild or whatever and selling it and making enough money that they would be able to, you know, continue doing that on a part-time or regular basis. And then having to pay Hasbro for that stuff, which, you know, goes directly against the open source rules that they had initially came out with. And there was a whole issue with that. Now they backed off on that pretty quickly, but then they quickly just vilified themselves throughout the year with several different other terrible choices. Chief among them was that a couple weeks ago they laid off 1,100 people. Hasbro laid off 1,100 people, the vast majority of those people being in Wizards of the Coast, the Dungeons and Dragons team, and right before Christmas too. And they didn't need to do that. Why? Well, because Magic the Gathering and D&D 5th edition have been some of the highest profit generators for the company. So why not, get rid of other people in the company if you're trying to trim down? If that's your concern, why don't you get rid of some people in the toy departments that aren't making as much, or I don't know, other places, or just, why not let the CEO of the company just take a pay cut from this year, or not take a bonus and keep those people on, keep those jobs for this next year. That could have easily have been happening, but nope, it didn't. And because of that one decision, that solidified my deal of just I'm never buying a D&D product again until these things change, until the leadership at Hasbro gets replaced or removed. And this is a very similar stance that people took with Activision Blizzard and Bobby Kotick, and totally understand that 100%. The only reason I did not do a huge boycott of Activision Blizzard games, and specifically until Bobby Kotick left the company, which I know a lot of other creators did, is because I have a lot of friends that work at Blizzard. And the thing that, they're like, whatever, do what you need to, like boycott, sure, if that's what you want to do, go ahead and do that. But you have to remember that the vast majority of people working at that company also are upset about the situation. And by trying to vote with your wallet on that one, you're also hurting those people, because then those people are going to lose their jobs because the company is not making enough money. So I decided I wanted to support my friends and my colleagues still there, and help change the industry from the inside out, which I have a note on in just a minute. But I did want to mention the good news is that Bobby Kotick is officially out in just a few days from Activision Blizzard. Don't have to worry about that. And the Xbox deal went through, so there is a lot of hope on the horizon for the health of that company. But I want to discuss a great victory that I had in the games industry this year. And we're going to discuss that based on what we were just talking about, which is that back in 2021, at the very end of it, or towards the end of it, where all of these allegations for Activision Blizzard were popping out, I made a proclamation, a declaration that I never wanted to see alcohol at industry events ever again. And I would not attend these events if there were alcohol at them, because a lot of the harassment, a lot of the issues that were coming up were specifically at games industry events in which there was alcohol present. And that type of inebriation or casual setting was causing a lot of sexual harassment to happen, on top of just blatant harassment in general. It's not like that the alcohol is evil, but it was bringing out the evil in people. Okay. Specifically, I made this proclamation with my many years of games industry experience. I've been doing YouTube for 11 years, but I have been deeply aware of the games industry and a lot of what goes on in it for at least the last 15 years. And then I also had, within the last handful of years, seen that for myself. And I got burned pretty hard by terrible leadership. So I think my declaration for that, of not wanting to ever attend events that had alcohol, was very, how do you put it? Zealous. I think many people would not agree with me on that, and that's totally their prerogative. I don't really care. That was kind of my stance that I was taking. But we had a great victory, and that is because this year, when I went to BlizzCon and I got my invite to go to the creator mixer for the Diablo partners, where we were able to hang out with the developers and other content creators that are a part of the Diablo partner program, and among other content creators as well. I got the invite, and it specifically said that alcohol would not be present and to not bring it. So that is a direct response. By the way, this is an official Blizzard event for people from the outside, like content creators and whatnot. So it is sanctioned by Blizzard in this case, and they made the choice not to have alcohol there. And to that, I say is an absolute win and something that I want to celebrate. And I want to celebrate that with you guys, because that is a step in the right direction that our industry is starting to take with one of the biggest companies. And I think it is just a matter of time before we continue to see that. Again, I don't think alcohol is evil, but in this case, it was definitely enabling behavior that is not okay. So let's share that victory together. I'm really happy for that. I'm hoping that continues into the future under the leadership of Xbox, and that Xbox adopts that, because if they adopt that, then everybody else will adopt that as well, or most other people. So I'm super, super duper happy for that. All that said, I still didn't get to go to that event because I had already made my plans, and I was flying in Thursday night, where BlizzCon started on Friday. The event was Thursday night, and I got in like a couple hours past when it had ended anyway. So I didn't even get to go to the event to celebrate it, but I want to celebrate it with you guys that you know, we made some success there. And I made sure to contact the community managers that I have in contact with for that specific event, and just in general for the Diablo content, or for the Diablo community managers, to give them a big thumbs up on that one. Like a huge thank you for listening to that. And maybe, you know, I guarantee you it wasn't me as the one that made that change, but I would like to say, like, hey, I saw that as an issue and other people did too, and I'm glad that that is being taken care of. But let's shift gears. Let's talk about life. Let's get personal. Let's get deeply interested in my mundane life, which, yeah, some people would think is mundane, other people will think it's chaos, and that is just the way of being a married man with kids. You know, the people who are single and don't have kids will think that it's absolute chaos, and you are correct. And the people who are married, have had kids, and those kids have now moved out, will think that it is completely mundane and I should enjoy it while it lasts. And you know what? That is also a very valid point. I understand where I'm at and where I live in this like bubble of these chapters of my life, but I want to talk about it because it's been a fascinating year. So last year in 2022, I started my own business. I started Beholder Tabletop, where I 3D print miniatures and terrain and just like stuff for tabletop games, specifically for like tabletop RPGs and wargaming. And last year I had also gotten interested in Star Wars Legion. I was like, cool, I'm doing this miniature stuff. I'm able to print terrain. I've got like all these fancy printers, and my business is massively succeeding. So let's get into this stuff. Let's learn more about what I'm getting into. I'm already interested in tabletop RPGs. I'm making my own tabletop RPG, which I've been doing for several years. And that is, you know, jumped into the forefront lately as I have people around me that I'm able to go and test the game with, and, you know, iterate and make that game a lot better before I put it out publicly, which is awesome. But that's a whole other story for a whole other different vlog. No, instead I got into Star Wars Legion last year. I was really enjoying it. And then that kind of wet my whistle, and I got interested in upcoming games. So like Star Wars Shatterpoint. Why? Well, it's Star Wars, and I love Star Wars, but it's also a much smaller game. So Star Wars Legion is like a big army war game, and Star Wars Shatterpoint is a skirmish game. Much fewer models that you're ever having to deal with, a smaller board that you play on, and a much faster game. So I was like, cool, let's get interested in that. So I pre-ordered it, bought it, made a bunch of stuff for it, really enjoying that game. And then over the last year, it's been a slow burn, but I've really gotten into Warhammer, specifically Warhammer 40k, but I'm not limited to that, especially now. So when I first got into 40k, I started reading lore bits. I started doing some research. I started watching a lot of videos, watching like Play on Tabletop and watching them play through. I actually really like their way of doing it, where they do, they call it 40k in 40 minutes, which they play Warhammer 40k and they edit it down to 40 minutes, and it's really enjoyable and quick and snappy, and you get those like cool moments of big dice rolls or big moves and stuff without the wait a second, we have to look up this rule because we forgot what this rule is. Like, so it's not like a live thing that takes several hours. So I really enjoy watching that kind of stuff. And I started with that. I even started playing some of the video games, been like, oh yeah, I'm interested in this world of Warhammer. And how do I dive into that more? Well, then they announced that 10th edition Warhammer was going to come out, and they had a whole new starter box. So I bought the Leviathan starter box, which comes with Space Marines and Tyranids. Basically, if you're a video game fan, it comes with the Terran and the Zerg from StarCraft. And just like a little, what they call combat patrols, which is a smaller version of the game. It's the game itself is typically played at 2,000 points, and each unit has different point values. So you play with 2,000 points. You have a bunch of models on the table. The table that you play on is a 4x6 for the 2,000 point games, pretty big. Whereas the combat patrol is much smaller and it's about 500 points, depending on which combat patrol that you're playing. Those rules are balanced to be balanced off of each other, so that way they're not the points aren't all exact, but the way that the combat patrols are balanced out, it is pretty balanced. So I got the Leviathan box, assembled it all, started painting some of it, was having a lot of fun, and then I started getting deeper into the Warhammer stuff, realized, and this is about when Diablo 4 came out this year, that I am really into the Sisters of Battle. I love their lore. They are nuns with guns. They are this faction that is essentially the military hand of the Church of the Emperor of Mankind, and they go around the universe burning heretics. And it was basically the Church of Light from Diablo 4, and I was like, this is really cool. So I bought the combat patrol for them and got a bunch of other stuff, and I'm putting together an army. And in fact, I just played today with my stepson. We had a little competition this year, right? Getting into Warhammer lore because he was interested. So I told him, let's read a Warhammer book, and depending on who finishes the book first, well, I will get a combat patrol of their choosing for that person. So if it's me, I get to pick whatever combat patrol I want, and if it's him, he gets to pick, and I'll buy it for him. So we picked up Horus Rising. Horus Rising is the first book of the Horus Heresy series, which happens in Warhammer 30k, but is the lead up to Warhammer 40k. It's kind of the whole basis of the story of Warhammer 40k. So it's a great place to start. So I said, if you finish the book first, you'll get a combat patrol. I initially was like, I'm going to let him, and I was going to buy him a combat patrol of his choosing. But he actually beat me. I was listening to it on audiobook. He was reading the book, and he beat me by like 20 minutes. So it was a fun little competition. And he picked orcs. So now we have an orc combat patrol. We have the Tyranids and the Space Marines, and then we also have my Sisters of Battle. So we've got a wide range of stuff to play, and it's been a lot of fun getting into Warhammer. I've now since read a couple of the other books, and I'm just kind of getting into it. I'm just, really enjoying it. And then during Black Friday, our game store had a huge Black Friday sale. They're just getting rid of stock that they had to try to make space. Our game store is actually doing so well that they had to move locations to a bigger location, which happened to be right upstairs from them, which was an old gym, but they bought it out, and now they've got this huge space with a bunch of game space in it. By the way, if you don't have a local game store that you go to on a regular basis, you should check one out. You see what you have around you and just go in and check it out. I think you'll be surprised how much fun that you might have, whether it be playing card games like Pokemon or Magic or Lorcana, or random board games, or even war games like Warhammer and Star Wars Legion. But I went in and checked out their Black Friday deals. Sure enough, they had the Dominion box, which is Warhammer Age of Sigmar, which is the fantasy analogous to 40K, and they had that for stupidly on sale. I think I picked it up for like $40. And that's an insane deal. If you guys know what I'm talking about, like the box price of that to get it for $40, I was like, I can't not get it. So I picked one of those up, and it's just sitting over behind me, completely unassembled, just still in its box. But you know what? I got it. So if I ever decide to get into Age of Sigmar, I have a good starting point. But why? Why did I get into Warhammer? Well, initially it is twofold. One, I'm interested in it. That's an easy one. And two, it's part of my work. So like I said, this last year I opened my own business. I was doing 3D printing, having a bunch of fun with that. It was a lot of work. I was working very, very long days, sometimes 15 to 16 hour long days. And I decided, because I saw a slump in business, as you would normally do in that business at the beginning of the year, so like last January, on top of also having just bought a house, right? There's another thing that happened this year. I bought a house in February. New construction, really enjoy our house. It's nice. We're being able to do whatever we want on the inside of it and start upgrading different rooms. And we just got our office mostly finished, and that feels really good. I've been talking about that in videos for the last few weeks, though, so you can just listen to those. However, I wanted to try to make up for any deficit that we had, so I started doing miniature painting commissions. I'm a fairly adept miniature painter. I've actually gotten very high placed. I got third place on a miniature painting competition on the mini painting subreddit a couple years back, and I could have won it, but man, I did that whole thing that you do in like college and high school where you get to the assignment and you're like, man, I want to get it done, but at the same time I've got other things that I want to do, and you put it off and you put it off and you put it off, and then you just put so much time into it for like the last 10% of time that you have left, and you knew that you could have done way better. It was one of those situations. I got third place still, so I was very happy with that. But I'm a pretty good miniature painter. In fact, I'm going to put a couple pictures on the screen now, stuff that I've painted this year. But if you're interested in seeing that stuff, you can head over to the Instagram that I run for my business, which is Beholder Tabletop on Instagram. But you could just go to the description below and you can click on the link there and head straight there and check it out. So I'm a pretty good miniature painter. I understand that I am. I really enjoy doing it. It's quite fun. So I was like, cool, let's open up painting commissions. And little did I know that was going to explode and just become a whole other thing where I have local people who have me booked out for several months of like them getting their Star Wars Legion stuff done. I've painted over 300 clones this year for Star Wars Legion. I'll tell you what, I'm really good at painting clones now. But I don't like painting clones anymore. I also wanted to get into Warhammer because I wanted to break into that scene. I wanted to do commissions for Warhammer pieces, and sure enough, I've been able to do that and be quite successful at it. So there's been business reasons for getting into it as well, on top of just also enjoying it. But the thing is, and I'm able to make this as not an excuse, but as a reason to do it, is the more that I know about what's going on in the story of Warhammer and the history of it and all of that stuff, being more absorbed into it, the better I am going to be at doing my job for painting people's pieces, because they can tell me, oh, I want my Space Marine chapter to be like this Legion and with these markings because after this date the Legion changed and now they have these different markings on their armor and stuff, and I know what they're talking about, right? Whereas if you've never heard of Warhammer before and you just listen to me say that, you're just like, I have no idea what's going on. The good news is, though, that Games Workshop and Amazon just finally penned the deal to start the cinematic universe, you might say, movies and TV for Warhammer 40K. And Henry Cavill is the creative director of all that too, and he loves Warhammer, so he's gonna be a good shepherd of that, I believe. All that to say, now's the time. If you've ever gotten interested in Warhammer, now is the time to jump in and check it out. If you're getting into the miniatures and you're interested in 40K, I would recommend just going on Warhammer.com, going to the shop and like going to the armies and just looking at every single one and just being like, which army am I interested in? Like visually. Okay. Then I'm also going to put another link in the description next to the Instagram of a video from Arbiter Ian. He is a YouTuber who does Warhammer 40k lore, and he does it in a respectful way. What I mean by that is he respects your time. Some lore videos are like 2 hours long, and you're like, oh my goodness, I'm not going to listen to you dramatically recount what happened in the story for 2 hours because, no offense, your voice is really annoying. So instead, this guy does it in about 20 minutes, and he has this great video where he actually breaks down all of the different factions within Warhammer 40k, and that gives you a great direction. So if you're interested in that, I'll put that stuff in the description below. But honestly, if you're interested in just the story stuff, I recommend picking up Horus Rising. It's a great book, and it's a good start. Otherwise, yeah, I don't think I would recommend getting into the books unless you know a little bit more about the story in general, and then you can make a educated decision on where to go from there. But that's all my Warhammer stuff out of the way. So basically, I did a lot of painting this year. I did a lot of painting commissions. It's one thing I've learned is just really, really, really difficult when you have painted something incredibly well and you're so proud of it, and you take it and you give it over to somebody knowing that you will likely never see that thing again. Yeah, you took pictures of it and you can look at it online, but you're never going to see that thing again. And there were so many commissions this year that I just didn't take pictures of, and they're just, they're gone. They're just gone to the wind, and I'm never going to see those paintings ever again, which is heartbreaking as a creative person, because you put all of that time and effort into doing it, and you make it look really good, and then it's just gone. And all of that time you put into it has turned into dollars, and sure, good dollars. You know, painting commission, it pays a lot. If you're doing a good job, you get paid a lot of money, or at least you should be. Some people way undervalue themselves. But the thing I always tell my clients is that they are not buying my time. They are not like, you know, hey, I'm giving you money to go and do this. No. I always tell them that they're actually buying their time back, right? They don't have to go and learn how to paint as well as I can paint in order to paint their army, or just even put in any time to paint their stuff to whatever level. They're deciding, no, that my time is more valuable. I'm going to have somebody else do that for me so I can just enjoy the game and free up the time to go do other stuff, right? So they're buying their time back. They're not necessarily just buying my time. So yeah, I think that kind of helps them understand that dynamic there, because it's difficult. Like, I could treat it as a job. A lot of people do who do painting commissions. A lot of people way undervalue themselves. That's also a thing, but I have developed quite a name for myself in my area. And as a result, I have been very, very busy this year. And that's unfortunate. And that leads me into my failings. So you guys often don't know this unless you listen to very specific episodes of stuff that I've done where I mention it. But when it comes to first impressions videos, I get keys. I get the keys for free 99% of the time. There's a handful of times where I don't, and I actually go buy the game myself. But I get keys sent to me, people saying like, hey, we're interested in you checking out our game. Can you look at it? And they give me a key. Or sometimes it's like a, hey, I'm interested in a game, so I seek it out through different websites. Like Keymailer is one of the big ones that I use, where I'm able to go and request keys, and the people I'm requesting them from can see all the content that I've done, and know like how regular I upload, what my average views are, average subscriber rate, and average engagement is, and they're able to determine like, yes, it's worth us to give this guy a key or not, right? So that is also another way that I get keys. And I get a lot of keys. Unfortunately, I just don't have the time to do most of them. I think if I invested the time into it, I would probably get 15 videos out a month of first impression stuff. which is kind of crazy. Like half of my month would just be first impressions videos, or like impressions videos of me taking like a deeper look at the game. The last one I did with that was Elden Ring, for example. And just like diving in and giving my thoughts on what I think of the game after several hours or many more after that. Depends on the game, obviously. But I wish I had more time to do that. And I just haven't had the time to do it. Sometimes it's way easier for me to just, you know, turn on my computer, boot up Terraria, make a video, you know, record for 40 minutes, cut that down to about 20 minutes on average, put a video up, and then be done with it. It's actually quite lazy, and I wish I had more time to invest into YouTube because my videos would be better. Granted, I think my videos are better than they were last year, better than the year before that, and the year before that. I am getting better at what I'm doing. I just wish that I could take it to a different level with being able to put more time into it. And if, you know, we want to talk brass tacks here, it's from the fact that I don't make enough money on YouTube to completely support myself. If I did, videos would be freaking amazing. I'd blow your mind. But unfortunately, I don't. And I have to do painting commissions, and I have to run Beholder Tabletop, and I have to do like weird odd jobs for people to, you know, like, for example, I'm 3D printing a travel case that holds miniatures and stuff for somebody right now. And getting all this stuff done just to be able to pay my mortgage and feed my family and all that. It's tough. And these businesses that I run, everything takes a piece of my pie. Everything takes a piece of my time. And that cuts into my time with my family, my time with my wife, just to be able to try and make ends meet. And I wish that YouTube could be a bigger piece of that pie, but it's not. And if it was, the content would get a lot better. And you may say, well, I like your content the way it is. Okay, but just imagine what would happen if you like the content the way it is now. It just was more entertaining, and I put more time into it. I did more research on the stuff that I'm doing. I did more first impressions, and I did more interviews, and I did more going and seeing early builds of games and previews and live streams and all of this stuff. Live streams is the big one that I want to experiment with this next year of how can I fit that in time-wise. But that is something that takes time. And it's going to take it away from something else. What is it going to take it away from? I don't know yet. But I wish that I had more time. Which actually is a great way to jump in here. And I'm going to do the whole YouTuber thing. Those of you who have supported me this year are incredible. Thank you so much. Patrons and channel members alike, you guys have freaking crushed it. Thank you so much. If you want to be one of those people that help the channel out, I recommend joining as a channel member on YouTube. You could do Patreon if you want, but we're trying to unlock specific stuff on the channel that makes channel membership better for people. So if you want to do that, there's multiple different tiers. And if you don't have any money to throw my way to help out with that, then don't worry about it. Just make sure that you're watching the videos as long as you can. Try to make it to the end, and because that helps a lot. You would be surprised. And then also like the videos, which is, you know, a big thing because that shows engagement, and leave a comment because that shows even more engagement. And when you do that, YouTube says this video is liked by a lot of people and we should send it to more people. And then they send it out and it gets a bunch more views and so on and so forth. And get more people who can then continue this cycle. In fact, I've been toying with this idea that if I ever got to the point where YouTube was on that breaking point of being able to completely support like my mortgage payment, then I would actually start a second channel, and the second channel would be all hobby stuff where I do Warhammer and I paint and I do painting tutorials and I show 3D printing and how that is revolutionizing the world and just all of this other side to me that I'm super passionate about, be able to share that with people and make it entertaining. There are people out there who make it entertaining. I think Scott Walter, the Miniac, you can search him on YouTube, Miniac, and Squidmar are two great examples of that. People who are just being really entertaining and making great videos. Another great example are the painting phase, which are a couple of them are ex-GW employees. One of them is Peachy, who used to do some of the painting videos for Games Workshop for Warhammer. They have their own podcast. I listen to it every week, and it's the best podcast I've ever listened to. It is so entertaining. They are so good at interviewing people, and they have such interesting guests on. Even if you're not really interested in painting or Warhammer or any of that, just go watch their stuff. It is great. All of these links will be in the description, by the way. But if YouTube ever got to that point, I would start a second channel. I would do all of what I just said, and then some. I would be live streaming on this channel. I would be live streaming on the other channel, and I would be doing that for most of my day. And then I would shave off a bunch of the time that I'm putting into everything else at the moment and actually give it back to my family. And they are suffering the most from having to have so many different things going on to support us. They definitely deserve more time from me. But that's my biggest failure this year, is not having enough time. I can't change that, right? I can shift things around and find time here and there, but I can't ever gain more time, and that's a problem. However, this is also the same reason why I like the Star Wars Ranked and Review series, which is beloved by the people who watch it or listen to it, because it is a podcast through YouTube, that they're like, where did it go? It's like, well, over the summer, the end of summer, while Ahsoka was going on, I just had to stop it. I just had to pause it because I had too many other things going on leading into the fall and whatnot. And then I've watched the original trilogy, right? Because that's the next thing on the ranked and reviewed list. I've watched the original trilogy. I've done my scripts for them. I just haven't recorded the videos, but those are going to be done in January and put up. So then the next 3 episodes will be available. And then from there, I'll move on to the next 3 episodes, which are episodes 7, 8, and 9. That's going to be a whole thing. I think a lot of people are going to enjoy my thoughts on that. Some people, not so much, but most people are really going to enjoy the absurdity that's going to come with the reviewing of the sequel trilogy and just the absolute rage in many areas. I got a lot to say. I'm going to save it for those episodes, though. And then I'm going to move on to the TV shows, and we'll do that probably early spring of next year. So we'll see how that ends up going, but I'm leaving the TV show stuff up in the air because I'm not entirely sure when I'll start that one, but we're going to finish the movie stuff in January and February and just get those ranked and reviewed and out of the way. As far as games are concerned for 2024, Hades 2 is a shoo-in. That is 100% going to be a game that I am doing. I wanted to do it this year, but it didn't release this year, which is totally fine. They take their time with that for all I care. It's Hades is an incredible game, and Hades 2 is going to be no exception to that. So I think that, Hades 2 is definitely one of the main games we'll be doing in 2024. Going to go all in on that. I want to do a bit more Diablo 4. We'll definitely jump in and try to get more of that done. Unfortunately, it's just one of those things that takes time, and that again is a failure of this year. I have not had enough time to put into the game like I wanted to, and it's just I don't have leisure time anymore. I don't get to sit down and play games, with the rare exception of like playing through Super Mario RPG when it released on the Switch and stuff like that, because I set aside time to do that. But when I actually just get to play games for myself, that has maybe happened a handful of times this year. It's kind of sad to think about for someone who does a video game YouTube channel. It's just the way it is. I also might consider doing a playthrough of Warhammer 40k Space Marine in preparation for Space Marine 2, which comes out in September. We'll have to see about that. I'm not too sure. That's just one of those things that I'm throwing around, kind of be like, am I interested in jumping in on that? I don't know. We also had, Rogue Trader come out, which is kind of a CRPG. It's like a Baldur's Gate version of Warhammer 40k, and that actually sounds like a lot of fun. I may jump into that and do an impressions video and just kind of test the waters and see if there's any interest there. Obviously, more Terraria. We're going to do Thorium next, the Thorium mod. It actually just got an update. I want to do a Fargo's Soul Mod update playthrough because they've added, or they're in the process of adding a bunch. I don't know quite where their update timeline is on that, but last I heard they were adding a bunch to it, and I am super hyped for it. So Fargo's Soul Mod is definitely on the list for 2024. Probably another Calamity playthrough, but this time Infernum, which is their like uber hard mode, and then just what was the other one? Oh, what is that? Starlight River for Terraria. We'll probably do a playthrough of that later next year when it gets a bit more content in it. Yeah, there's a lot. There's obviously a lot of games coming out next year. Star Wars Outlaws, that's another one that I'm going to be doing. If it comes out next year, I will 100% be doing that. So you keep your eyes on that one. And yeah, as always, I should say, if there are any suggestions that you have for games for 2024, put them in the comments. Let me know what you're interested in, because I listen to that. I say this a lot, but I read every single comment. I don't always have the opportunity to respond. Again, time is a failure of mine. But I do read every single one of them, and I listen to every single one of them. So if somebody, it's like, hey, I really want to see you play this game, I listen to it and I go, okay, possibly. And I go and do the research on it, and I see whether or not it's viable, and I make an informed decision on that. But I do, if someone suggests a game, go and research it. I bet you didn't know that. I bet sometimes you have thrown a game idea out there or a suggestion and just thinking that I won't read it, but I do. And I give it serious thought of whether or not it will be a series. And sometimes that has been successful for people. And I've done some incredible series of games based on somebody's suggestion. Dragon Age was, when I did Dragon Age Origins, Dragon Age 2, and Dragon Age Inquisition, and the lead up to Dragon Age Inquisition, which is why I started Origins, it came from a single comment of someone saying, hey, I'd really be interested in you playing Dragon Age. I was like, that's interesting. So I did my research, and that paid off. The Dragon Age Origin series, while really old, and I don't suggest going back to it, was very successful. Dragon Age 2 was very successful, and Dragon Age Inquisition was wildly successful. So I don't think we're going to be hearing anything about Dreadwolf next year as to a release date. But if it happens to, by a miracle, come out next year, I do not think it will. I think that game might be in trouble. But let's say, for a miracle, it comes out next year, I also will be doing a playthrough of that. So just keep that on the back burner. That's probably not coming out next year. But as far as the live streaming idea, the current idea is once in the morning and once at night. So twice a week, different days, and just kind of jumping those around and seeing which is working better and then adjusting from there. It's possible that I will get a lot more viewership at one time of the day than the other, or on one specific day than the other. So it's going to be a bit of adjusting and trying to figure that out of how to get it to work. If it's going to work at all. Sometimes you make a swing. I've made a swing at live streaming before, and it was mildly successful. So if I put the extra time into it and I get it to work, then that'll be that. And if I'm live streaming, it will be on YouTube. I'm still boycotting live streaming on Twitch. That's not really changed. In fact, that has only doubled down as of late, of like, I do not support this platform as a platform that I'm going to put myself on. So it will be on YouTube that I stream, and you'll be able to enjoy all the goodies that come along with that, which are live DVRs. So if you've missed a part, you can always go back. Immediate uploads of the VODs. You can, as soon as the stream ends, you can go watch it. There's the chat, and channel members will be able to get the live chat badges and everything for that, and which, by the way, you get a badge as a channel member if you make a comment, and everybody gets to see it, on top of being able to use all of our emojis and all that. So all of that stuff is channel membership exclusive. But if I'm live streaming, there'll be more reason to to do that. And I bet you didn't know this. Most people don't. You can do a super chat comment. So if you're like, I have a great idea, or I have a comment that I really want to put on here, maybe just a thanks, just like a, hey, thank you for 2023. Your Terraria stuff was great. I don't know. What do you guys say a lot? You guys say a lot of accolades to me, and I really appreciate it. I'm a words person. I really like hearing that kind of stuff. I eat it up. So that feeds me and gives me a lot of energy to keep going. But if you were like, hey, you know, thank you so much for 2023 and all this stuff, and you decided to do that as a super chat, as a comment, it pins that and everybody gets to see it. Like, hey, this person is super special. So that kind of stuff exists on YouTube, but people don't utilize it as much as they should, at least on our channel. I've seen other channels where they do. And it's just kind of a cool little thing that you can do to help support a channel. It's like a small little thing. Like, I'm going to do a super chat for $1 or $5 or whatever it is. It's like a drop in the bucket, but you'd be surprised how much that stuff accumulates throughout a year and helps out the production of the channel quite a lot. But I just want to loop back around to the beginning. I think 2023 was a fantastic year for us. Lots of growth on the channel. A lot going on in my life. A lot of, you know, bought a house, super busy, got 4 kids. 3 of them are bonus kids. 1 of them's my toddler. She's a handful, but she's adorable. Having to, you know, figure out how to give them time while also having to feed the monster that is running your own business. And there's just a lot going on. It's tough. It is really tough. But you guys have continuously supported me, whether it be just watching videos or financially through channel memberships and stuff like that. Or just words, you know, just being like, hey, thank you for this video, or I really enjoyed this video and stuff like that. That stuff fuels me and keeps me going. So again, thank you for 2023. 2024 is going to be the year of interesting games, experimentation, and a year in which I think we're going to see a large jump in the channel, based on recent history on as far as like subscribers and views and stuff like that. So I'm looking forward to that and just kind of keeping it going, and maybe we get a big enough boost that I can be like, okay, cool, let's double down and just do a bunch of YouTube stuff. That'd be great. It'd be great if I can replace all of the 3D printing stuff that I do, or all of the commission painting stuff I do with just YouTube. That would make a much more interesting channel for all of you guys and for me. And it's something I'm super passionate about. I've been doing it for, I said 11 years, but goodness, it's 12 years. Been doing this for 12 years, and I've uploaded every single day for 12 years without missing a day. That's a whole other feat within itself. But thank you for watching. Thank you for supporting the channel. And we shall see you guys. Man, I already fumbled that. You think I've been doing this for 12 years? We shall see you guys in 2024.